All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're digging into one of history's most compelling puzzles. We're going way back to ancient Babylon to uncover a story of impossible knowledge, a story that's been hiding in plain sight, etched into simple pieces of clay.
I mean, just let that sink in for a second. A download from the sky. It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, right? But this idea is at the very heart of a mystery that challenges pretty much everything we thought we knew about the ancient world. So what in the world was on these tablets?
Okay, so let's set the scene. Imagine you're an archaeologist digging in the ruins of ancient Babylon. You unearth thousands of these clay tablets, and at first you're thinking, okay, cool, a major find, but you're kind of expecting the usual stuff. Important, sure, but predictable.
And yeah, when they first looked at them, that's exactly what they seemed to be. Just a bunch of marks and scratches in cuneiform, that classic wedge-shaped writing. Looked like boring stuff, right? Grain sales, tax records, day-to-day administrative logs. So they were cataloged and, mostly filed away as just another piece of the giant historical puzzle.
But then, fast forward, modern computers get involved and they start analyzing the complex patterns on these tablets. And what they found? Whoa, it was absolutely staggering. These weren't just merchant logs, not even close. They were incredibly sophisticated astronomical logs, detailing the movements of the heavens with a complexity that just shouldn't have been possible.
And this is the exact moment the whole thing goes from being a cool historical find to a massive, mind-bending mystery. Because it wasn't just that they were looking up at the stars, it was what they were seeing and how incredibly precise their records were.
We are not talking about just, hey, there's a full moon tonight. No. They were tracking the changing speeds of planets as they moved. They were predicting eclipses with pinpoint accuracy. They were logging these incredibly complex cosmic cycles. You just can't do that by looking up. You need some serious math, a deep understanding of how celestial mechanics actually work. And here's the part that is just wild. Researchers took some of this ancient Babylonian data and they compared it to our modern data from NASA. And guess what? It was a perfect match. I'm not saying it was close. It was a 1-to-1 dead-on match. How is that even possible? Right? That's the billion-dollar question. No telescopes, no computers, none of the technology we take for granted. So how in the world did an ancient civilization achieve this? It's a question that makes you wonder if the history we've been taught is missing a major chapter. Well, to even begin to find an answer, you have to go back to the source, back to the Babylonian texts themselves. And the thinking is, hey, if their science was this unbelievably advanced, maybe, just maybe, we should take their own stories about where it came from a little more seriously, no matter how strange they might sound to us today. You see, in their texts, they talk about the source of this knowledge. They mention beings they called the Shining Ones, or those who descended, or the Watchers of the Sky. For centuries, historians just wrote this off as, mythology, gods, metaphors. But when you've got these other tablets with hard scientific data, you have to start asking, what if they weren't being metaphorical at all? And that's the big conflict right there. On one hand, you have the traditional view saying, nope, just myths, just gods, just stories. But on the other, you have the tablets themselves, cold, hard, physical evidence of knowledge that just shouldn't exist for that time. The two just don't add up. So you're left with this really controversial hypothesis that the data almost forces you to consider. Did the Babylonians just take this massive leap of genius all on their own? Or is it possible that their myths aren't myths at all? Could they have actually been taught by someone or something from up there? Now, if you're still skeptical and you need that one piece of evidence, that smoking gun that is just almost impossible to explain away, well, they found it on one little, unassuming clay tablet. And this one wasn't just about what they saw, it was about how they figured it out. Get this, what researchers found on this tablet was a description of an incredibly abstract geometric technique. They were using the area of a trapezoid to calculate the movement of Jupiter through space and time. That is a foundational concept of calculus. It's the kind of high-level, abstract thinking that experts believed was utterly impossible for any ancient civilization, until they found this. Now, to put this into perspective for you, look at this. The Babylonians are using this advanced math around 1750 BC. The exact same mathematical principle isn't invented, and I'm using air quotes here, until the 14th century in Europe. That gap in our historical timeline is it's unbelievable. Let's just say the number out loud. 3,500 years. Let that sink in. They were 3,500 years ahead of their time. This wasn't a lucky guess. This was pure theoretical science, a level of thinking that, according to our own history books, just wasn't supposed to exist for another 3.5 millennia. And this brings us right back to where we started. This incredible, time-shattering knowledge. The funny thing is, they never even took credit for it. In their own writings, they are crystal clear. This was a gift. It was a teaching that came directly from the heavens, from those same watchers of the sky. So, what do we do with all of this? The evidence is literally baked into clay, and it points to a version of our own history that's radically different from what we learn in school. A history where maybe humanity wasn't alone, where we might have had some cosmic teachers right at the dawn of our civilization. This is the huge question the tablets leave us with. It forces you to rethink, well, everything. Our origins, our intelligence, our place in the entire universe. Maybe we've been looking up at the stars, waiting for answers from the future, when those answers have actually been buried deep in our past all along. And the craziest part? There are still thousands of these tablets that hasn't even been fully translated. This incredible story is nowhere near finished. The secrets of the Skywatchers are still being revealed, one ancient symbol at a time. Because the tablets, they're still speaking. And you have to wonder, what else are they going to tell us?